Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, continuing on with our companies that built the world. Is that what it was called? I think that's what it's called. ExxonMobil this time.
We should have called this one companies that drilled holes in the world.
They
See what I
actually
did there?
destroyed
They
the world.
literally
Right.
did. No, they didn't. They might be a sponsor someday. Don't say that.
I assume they will be after this. Fun fact, Luke.
Shoot.
ExxonMobil is one word. I guess that some people knew that. I did not know that. I have seen it written as two words, but I think officially it's one.
I think it is too, because like when you look at their website, it's in their stock ticker and all that sort of stuff. Interesting.
If anyone's looking for something more insightful than that, you could stop right now for this episode.
So
no,
James,
don't say that. I'm kidding.
What exactly is ExxonMobil for those that aren't in the know?
Exactly. In my own words, I would say ExxonMobil is one of the world's largest publicly traded energy providers and chemical manufacturers. Very important point there. They develop and apply next generation technologies, to help safely and responsibly, very responsibly, meet the world's growing needs for energy and high quality HQ chemical products.
Why did you stop on the responsibility part for a little bit?
Because they're being very responsible.
Have they been shirking responsibility, perhaps?
I'm unaware of any shirking, Luke, but perhaps you'll be able to fill us in at some point.
Another fun fact. Did you know that it's the largest direct descendant from John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company? So apparently, way back when, they broke up into a whole bunch of little companies, did a whole bunch of little different things. But the Rockefellers were involved with the development of ExxonMobil.
They were. Are we going to jump into the history? Because I'm going to back things up.
Whoa. Pump the brakes there, Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown.
Stock price. So their ticker is XOM, which makes no sense because it's EXXON. I don't know why it wouldn't be EOM. I'm guessing someone else may have it. Today, they were trading this morning or end of day yesterday at $58.82. They were down 1.77%. Their current CEO is a cat by the name of Darren Woods. Fun fact, brother of James Woods, the famous actor.
Are you making that one up?
Totally making that up.
Okay.
He has been the CEO since 2017, which if in these big global companies, that's actually pretty good because these cats tend to get kicked out and change and move to a different job. So
he's probably made a couple bucks.
Goodness
Just
gracious.
so you know, Mr. Woods, I am coming for you. You're listening to the next CEO of ExxonMobil.
Their headquarters is in Drakeswell, Pennsylvania. Just kidding. No, Titusville. Just kidding. Irving, Texas. And they have roughly 86,000 employees worldwide because they are a global company, even though they are headquartered in Irving, Texas.
They are a global company. That is correct. Well done, Luke. That was a beautiful recap of how they perform today.
Here's what I love. Everything comes back to Pennsylvania. Have you realized this, James?
Yeah,
Everything.
I mean, I would have moved away if not.
The next episode we're recording has a Pennsylvania tie-in.
Does it really? I'm not sure I know that one. So we'll see.
Stay tuned for Kevlar at some point. We're going to talk about the Pennsylvania connection, but here's the Pennsylvania connection.
You're going to steal it from me?
Yeah, then you can do the rest. 1859, Sir Edwin Drake and Uncle Billy Smith. Who's Uncle Billy?
I know.
Uncle Billy Smith. I guess everybody called him Uncle. They drilled the first successful oil well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. Titusville is only about an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh.
we could walk there.
And literally was the impetus, to use a very extravagant word, for the oil boom that has been since 1859.
So here's a problem that I have, Luke.
Oh no.
How is that how you spell colonel?
Colonel? It's COLONEL. I don't, but I say it. The American language is terrible.
It's just the worst. I saw it from the page that we for sure did not steal this from
Did
together.
not.
Really, I mean, if you're going to go for some facts about Exxon, they should probably come from their website.
Yes.
So it only makes sense. But they said that this was kind of like paralleled a boom of the gold rush. Like the gold rush was such a big deal. Maybe we should do an episode on that, by the way. I think that would be fascinating.
I've been I've been watching Aussie Gold Hunters.
Oh,
It's like a reality TV show.
Okay.
It's amazing. Imagine people with Australian accents like cussing and swearing and digging up gold.
That sounds beautiful.
It's good.
But just think how big this oil boom was. It lasted a whole lot longer than the gold rush, because I'd say it's still going on today. But yeah, so I just had a few fun facts or statements about this 1859 discovery of the oils. So let's see. The drilling of this oil well marked the modern phases of the petroleum industry. If you haven't already, I think we have something on what is petroleum engineering. So go check out that episode. If we don't, we should cover that one. But what was interesting is that oil could be siphoned from the surface of pools of water near Oil Creek, which is, of course, in Titusville or Oil City, right?
Fun fact, I fished on Oil Creek.
Oh, did you eat said fish?
No, it's not oily anymore.
Oh, sure. Well, they sucked all the oil out, right? It was producing a whopping 18 gallons of oil per day. And it was used for mostly lighting and lubrication of local sawmills. Mr. Drake, as I call him because I respected him very much, or respect him very much, was brought in by investors way back in 1853, so really 6 years ahead of time, to dig this well for oil. He struck it only 69 feet below the surface on August 27th and yielded an average of 1,000 gallons per day for 3 years. Yeah, I mean, when you were at 18 gallons, 1,000's pretty good. But I guess that's pretty smart, right? They're like, hey, there's this much oil on the surface of the water. It must be pretty close, so we'll be able to get access to it.
So have you ever been to Drake's Well?
I took a field trip there when I was a youngster.
I don't know if I did a field trip, but I've definitely been there a couple of times.
Yeah. Was there more to that, or were you just curious?
No, I was just curious.
Okay. Drake's Well, it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places and designated a national landmark in 1966. But what's even cooler for the people listening to our show, because they are the best, it was designated a historic mechanical engineering landmark in 1979.
How awesome
I didn't even know that was a thing. This is the first time I've ever heard of something like that.
I think we will be a historic engineering.
Like our houses will get plates or something.
Like, yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, I think they should. We deserve it. We were the second best podcast in Pittsburgh once.
We were.
So you did mention Johnny D. Rockefeller, 1870. That's really when this all kind of started.
He and his boys got together.
Yeah, he and his partners, his boys, as you would say, formed the Standard Oil Company in 1870. In 79, though, the Standard Oil Company purchased up 3/4 interest in Vacuum Oil Company for 200 large. That's 200,000 for those of you not in the know. Due to their skills in, we'll say, the politics versus maybe business, but also their cutthroat, ruthless business activity and ethics. By that time, they started controlling 95% of the US's refining capabilities.
Why is that like I don't know. When you think of like big oil, I think of like a bunch of guys in suits, like smoking cigars and being all ruthless. Like why? My guess is it started way back then, like with all the shenanigans that they, did. It had to be, right?
Have you met anyone in oil before?
Yeah, they are pretty ruthless, aren't they?
They are. I've never met one of them that wasn't smoking cigars and didn't have a 6-shooter on his side.
All righty. 1882. This is bananas to me. Like, I know. And there's a couple of these in the history. And check out ExxonMobil's website. You can see all this history for yourself if you want more details. This is where we didn't steal it from. So Standard Lubricants was
Standard Lube, I call it.
Standard Lube. Our boy T-Bone Edison used it on his first generating system.
Yes,
isn't that crazy? He used oil from ExxonMobil and Frank D to oil the machines that he used.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah. I just posted something about Edison on our Facebook
saw
page
that.
and got all sorts of hate. I love that. Fun fact about that same time frame, Luke. It was the first trust ever formed, and was constructed to circumvent Ohio's laws restricting ownership of out-of-state companies. So that's
Interesting.
kind of interesting. So before we continue on, I get into the 1900s next, but maybe you have some things before then. I would like to take a break for a word from our sponsor.
ExxonMobil.
It is not ExxonMobil, but it's someone
Ah.
bigger and better. It's the Big Compute Podcast. Go have a listen.
What can computational science tell us about the tsunami generated by the biggest earthquake to ever hit Europe? Before you know it, everything is shaking, and shaking loudly. What makes the coronavirus so contagious?
It's the machine that literally will latch on to your human cell and ultimately infect you.
And what was it like when a massive act of cyber warfare stopped an entire country in its tracks? Their ATM greets you with red text over a black screen. This is really starting to creep you out. These are just some of the questions being answered every day through the power of computing. And on Season 2 of the Big Compute Podcast, we transport you to the heart of these stories, giving you a first-hand look at how computational science is changing our world. Find the Big Compute Podcast wherever you get your audio, or visit bigcompute.org.
All right. So, in addition to the Big Compute Podcast, thank you for the sponsorship, by the way. I did have one shout out that I wanted
do we got?
to give. This is Mr. John R.
Johnny R.
Johnny R. I'm a geotechnical engineer based in Canada, and I've been listening to your podcast on my way to various sites around the country. And I absolutely love what you guys are doing. Just wanted to reach out and say you guys are doing fantastic work.
Canada's
Thanks,
a country?
John. It might be another state soon. I'm not sure. Once we open up the borders,
We'll have to do geotechnical engineering. That sounds interesting, right?
It does sound interesting. I actually wrote back to him and said, "Is that like fancy talk for civil engineering?" Like, I think he's trying to trick us. Like
He's
that.
a civil and he probably doesn't want to say it.
I don't blame him at all. Geotechnical does sound cool, but he did make a suggestion for a new episode, which would be tailings dams or earthen dams. So he gave a bunch of them. I assume that's what beavers make.
He did our research for us?
Yeah.
What?
He did. Yeah, he did our research for us. So thanks.
You'll get your stickers in about 7 years.
Oh my goodness, I'm so behind on emails. If any of you want me to neglect your email, if you'd like to request some stickers, if you'd like to suggest some episodes, anything of that sort, maybe just tell us that we're doing fantastic work, or my favorite emails, the ones that correct what we got wrong, go ahead and email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and as always, we love the reviews, and you can tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
How great would it be if you could tell your smart device to give us a 5-star review? Oh
Probably
my
could.
gosh. We should code that somehow. Do you have anything before 1903, Luke?
No, I know where you're going too.
You do? That's because I need some shameless plugs. 1903, the Wright brothers, our friends Wilbur and Orville, oh, poor Orville, use both Jersey Standard fuel and Mobil oil lubricants for their historic flights from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Make
If
sure
you
you check
haven't
out our
already-
episode.
Oh, you stole it! You
jerk.
stole it. Oh, I love it. 1911. So following the landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision, Standard Oil, this is crazy to me, it breaks up into 34, quote, unrelated companies,
Yeah.
which included Jersey Standard and, I'm going to say this wrong, right? Socony,
You nailed it.
Socony.
Like the tennis shoes.
Yes, I don't know what you're talking about. But these were the chief predecessor companies to Exxon and Mobil, respectively.
Mhm.
And then they also broke up into, is it vacuum oil?
Vacuum oil, Jersey, some kerosene place.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting as well that you mentioned the kerosene. That year also marks the first time that Jersey Standards, which would have been Exxon, the sales of kerosene actually are surpassed by gasoline. So before, kerosene was like the main product, but at this time, kind of going along with vehicles and other uses, gasoline kind of surpass them in
Well,
sales.
because kerosene was major for heating in homes and lanterns and all that sort of stuff.
It's funny. Hold on real quick.
Oh,
before that point though, gasoline was produced, but it was discarded as a nuisance. Like there's no use for this junk, and they would get rid of it.
Who needs that?
No.
So 1915, good friend of the show, Ralph De Palma, won the Indianapolis 500. And I know you know the number, but what do you think his average speed is without looking?
It was 80 something, right? 87 maybe?
It was 89.84. So I drive faster than that to go get my mocha frappuccino whenever I go to the, like, seriously,
to be 80? Fair, you drive that fast to pass someone and then get back over because you have that silly belief.
Driving fast.
Oh, I know you do. What's next?
I feel like we need to go to 1919 because it just sounds fun to say.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Oh, 1919 Jersey Standard acquires a 50% interest in Humble Oil and Refining Company in Texas. Nothing about oil says Humble, but that's okay. It was during this year that Humble, led by the pioneering chief geologist Wally Wallace Pratt, employed micropaleontology, which is an interesting topic. But this is the study of microscopic fossils contained in cuttings and core samples from drillings to help aid in finding oil. So basically, he's the person who discovered that they could drill into the ground with like a tiny spot, pull out a core sample, and from the tiny fossils in there, figure out if there was going to be oil underneath.
Understanding the composition, actually applying science, right?
Instead of like the divining rod that old what's his face in Drake's Well used. That's awesome.
1920, Jersey Standard researchers, they produce rubbing alcohol and isopropyl alcohol, the first commercial petrochemical. Like, I guess I never thought about like rubbing alcohol, peroxide, like all these different things that are byproducts of petroleum. Like, you're right. Like you talked about the gasoline, they were probably throwing this stuff away because like the way a refinery works, like we did an episode on how refining oil works, right?
We did refining oil and gas, I believe.
Check that out. But basically you take, if you don't want to listen to it, here's the snapshot. You basically take oil and you like heat it and distill it and heat it and distill it, and different things come off. Like, you know, rubbing alcohol comes off and you add stuff to it, gasoline, kerosene, whatever you're doing to it. But they were just throwing this stuff away for years. And then my guess is, and I have no proof that this is what happened, they were probably getting rid of some rubbing alcohol, and a guy had a cut on his hand that was working the machine, and it was like the next day the cut was cleaner and didn't get infected. And they're like, oh, hold on. And then my guess is that's what's happened.
I love that you just totally fabricated that story.
I did.
And now it's just going to be gospel.
Tell your teachers. That's how rubbing alcohol was invented.
That's right. Also, don't drink rubbing alcohol, kids. You will go blind, I think, or die. Where are you going next?
I feel like these Humble guys were like on the ball. So in 1927, the geoscientists, they use refraction seismography to discover an oil field in Sugar Land, Texas. The namesake of the country band Sugar Land.
Is that right?
I have no idea.
You're on a roll today, Luke.
I am full of fabrications today. But yeah, so like in the 1920s was and you can see that where they're doing the research in 1919. This is really when things got way more scientific for the exploration, because before that they were just drilling holes and moving and drilling a hole and moving and drilling a hole. So you got to go 1928, James. I know you got this one.
It was a fun fact, at least, that I listed. Amelia Earhart, longtime listener, big fan of the show, uses mobile oil to protect friendship when she makes her historic flight across the Atlantic. I did not realize that it was named Friendship, but I like that. Previous year,
she get lost? I thought she got lost.
Didn't she get sucked into the Bermuda Triangle?
Something like that.
Yeah. It's probably still flying around in there. We should do an episode on the Bermuda Triangle.
We should.
Gosh, that's 2 episodes. I don't even remember the first one. Anyways, the previous year, Charles Lindbergh used mobile oil in the Spirit of St. Louis. I knew that name, on his first solo flight across the Atlantic. His first and the first. So good fun fact. Not so fun fact though, Luke. In 1930s-ish time frame, no secret about this. Walter C. Teagle was head of Standard Oil, and the company forged, I like that, the company forged close ties with IG Farben, a firm that supported the Nazis and used concentration camp labor. Not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool, Teagle.
Not cool.
If you haven't checked out our episode on Henry Ford as a great inventor, there's some of those ties in there as well.
There's some darkness there.
There is some darkness. All right, where are you going next?
Let's be positive. 1956, Pan American Airways flies its first transatlantic on a Boeing 707 from New York to London. And guess what kind of gas was in it?
I have no idea.
Get-go gas.
Was it?
From Giant Eagle.
From Giant Eagle.
Those of you who don't know, it's Giant Eagle, but in Pittsburgh, we pronounce it Giant Eagle.
One of us said something, Yinzuri, and somebody emailed us about it.
They called me out on it.
Did they?
Yeah, they called me out on it. But no, it was actually fueled by mobile aviation fuel.
Oh, that's great. I saw that as 1958. That's okay.
What did I say?
I think you said 56.
And 58.
We strive for 100% accuracy.
We do. Accuracy is where we're at for sure.
I go to 63 next.
Oh, you can't skip 59. This was like the coolest thing.
Obviously, I can. Go
1959,
ahead.
Some super intelligent marketer like James or myself,
absolutely,
from Chicago, came up with this idea of put a tiger in your tank. And for the longest time, mobiles, they had it looked like Tony the Tiger, but a little slimmer.
He was slimmer.
But yeah, there was put a tiger, and you can still see the tiger, in different things.
I skipped that because I literally have never heard of this.
Oh my God, you never heard of that?
No.
Okay.
I don't know much about tigers though, only from what I've learned from Tiger King, which I think there's a second season of Tiger King coming out. I don't know how. Okay, one more and then we're going to take another break. 1963, our friends Humble invents 3D seismic technology. Which is different than what you mentioned, I suppose. A revolution that completely changed the way the industry searched for oil and gas. Uses massive parallel computers in seismic imaging, and it helped our geologists sharply reduce finding costs. So really reducing the cost to figure out where that oil was going to be and taking advantage of computers way back in 1963. I would bet, and this is another one of these Luke fabrications, I would bet that the computers they use have less computing power than our cell phones do today.
Oh, I guarantee.
Doesn't that seem like a safe bet?
They did. Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm not fabricating. I'm not purposely lying, James. I'm just making assumptions based
hypothesizing.
I'm hypothesizing.
Perhaps.
There's a difference.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so before we hypothesize any further, I think it's time for us to take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
Price of gas. It is ridiculous.
How could it not be?
Oh my goodness. So I don't know. So do you still have your truck? Yes, James still has his truck.
I do still have my truck.
He went on mute to drink some coffee. He has his truck, and I'm sure the Corvette doesn't get great gas mileage either. Yes,
it does
James
not.
has a Corvette, if you've never heard that scenario before.
Come on now.
But the price of gas here is so stupid. It's just every time I go, and my truck, it doesn't get great gas mileage, but I just don't understand how. And I understand we want to protect the environment, and I understand that we want to be, cognizant of what we're doing with fracking and oil sands and drilling in the Gulf and all these different places they're exploring up in Alaska, and all these pipelines that are going across Native American lands. We want to be super mindful of all of that. But the reality is, there's got to be a way to make gas cheaper, and I don't know why. It just keeps on going up. This idea of this supply and demand changing literally week to week is just amazing to me. So, and keep in mind, we've been out of the pandemic for a while, and we're getting to the end of it supposedly. Okay. Maybe not, but it's just I'm waiting for it to drop, and I think what's going to happen, unfortunately, folks, is it's just never going to drop. This is just how gas is going.
They'll pay for this. That's fine. Yeah, I think you're right. What bothers me is that. A lot of it is taxes, right? Especially in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
But up until maybe 2 years ago, give or take. So my wife's family is from Ohio. Every time we'd go to Ohio, it'd be oh, we're going to fill up because their gas was seriously maybe $1 a gallon cheaper at times. Maybe not quite so much, but almost. And now they've done their taxing and whatever else, I assume. And now the price there is just as much as it is here in Pennsylvania. So thanks a lot for that.
Jerks.
Jerks. 1972 is where I'm at. You have
Shoot.
anything else?
Nope.
Jersey Standard officially changes its name to Exxon Corporation. It's approved by Jersey Standard shareholders in a special meeting, because you need to have special meetings for things like that. 74, Mobil introduces a synthetic automotive engine lubricant, Mobil One. Today, Mobil One is the world's leading synthetic motor oil. What's that, 50 years later? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different grades of Mobil One. It's not that original one. They've obviously made different formulations and improvements to it.
I mean, obviously, but the name, like the brand.
But here's my question about that, right?
Like put a tiger in your tank.
Well, no, they're an oil company. Why would they want to make a synthetic oil? Like, what, you would think that they would want people putting pure oil, or, you know what I mean? Like, synthetic oil has all kinds of extra additives. Like, I would think that as an oil company,
maybe it makes their product better and therefore more desirable for purchase versus the jerks just doing oil.
I mean, supposedly synthetic oils do make your engines last longer and run better, kind of thing.
Seems like a good reason to me.
So there's a bunch of shenanigans in the 70s, but I feel like for time's sake, James, we gotta get to 1989.
Oh, one more, 75.
Okay.
Mobil participates in completion of Barrel A, the world's first concrete production platform.
Oh, this is a
50
super tall
story high. 50 stories high was a prototype for other concrete deep water facilities operating in the North Sea. So if you haven't, check out our episode on deep sea drilling, which focuses on the North Sea a lot.
It did.
But okay, now you can move ahead.
Okay. Cue the sad music. On March 24th, 1989, the tanker Exxon Valdez runs aground in Prince William Sound in Alaska. And you probably don't remember this much, James, because you were
I remember it happened, or I remember being told that it happened later on.
You were in diapers, I think.
I mean, I just got out of them. So
speaking of oil spills, so this is considered one of the worst environment. Like, there's been bigger oil spills, but from an environmental impact oil spill, it's considered one of the biggest. This thing leaked. Where's the number? 10.8 million gallons of oil into Prince William Sound. And to this day, the area has never recovered. So I have some terrible facts for you. The amount of oil spilled could fill up 125 Olympic-sized swimming pools, 2,800 sea otters, 300 harbor seals, 900 bald eagles, 250,000 seabirds died in the following days after the disaster. 1,300 miles of coastline were affected. The cleanup required 10,000 workers, 1,000 boats, and roughly 100 planes and helicopters. The spill cost over $300 million in economic harm, and 32,000 people who lived in the area lost their jobs in commercial fishing.
That is so crazy. The only number I had was the 250,000 animals that were killed over that time, which
bananas.
It's just nutso. But I did see that. I don't have the fact in front of me, and maybe you mentioned it, but there was something like, I don't know, like half of the beaches still have oil underneath the sand still. It's crazy.
So initially, like 1994 or whatever the date was, there was a $5 billion settlement. And Exxon, who has more money than you could imagine, kept on going back to court fighting. And I think it kept on dropping. I think the last settlement was $2.5 billion. And it's just like, really? Like, you have all this money, you can't pay for this cleanup? Come on.
That's a lot of dollars. I'm going to be honest. That's almost podcast money right there.
Almost.
99 is where I go next.
Yep, that's a big one.
November 30th of 99. I didn't realize it was this recent, honestly. Exxon and Mobil join forces, and they probably don't like to say it that way, to form Exxon Mobil Corporation. This merger will enhance our ability to be an effective global competitor in a volatile world economy. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people were against this. This was a very suspect merger, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
2005, I have ExxonMobil and Qatar Petroleum, with other joint venture partners, expand development of the giant North Field offshore Qatar, the largest non-associated gas field in the world. So that's kind of interesting. And again, check out our deep sea drilling episode. I think that was really
a good one.
interesting about how it basically isn't worth doing unless demand's super high, and then they kind of turn those places back on. What else do you have?
I just realized why gas is so expensive. In 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, they actually maximized their production of isopropyl alcohol, which is used in medical grade hand sanitizer. So they were making hand sanitizer instead of gasoline for a year.
Oh my goodness.
Jerk
Should have just let
faces.
COVID run even more rampant.
And
That's
don't,
not true.
Don't
I was
ever
not
Google,
serious.
just for the record, folks, don't ever Google ExxonMobil and lawsuits, because it
Oh my
basically just goes, brrrr. Apparently everybody and their mother hates ExxonMobil for whatever reason.
That's a reason. I had two things that I wanted to call out on the edumacation side of things. 2016, ExxonMobil and Georgia Tech. If you listen to any of our engineering episodes, that's always one of the top 10, 20 schools
lists
for you to be going to, regardless of engineering. Those researchers developed a potentially revolutionary reverse osmosis technology that could significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions associated with plastics manufacturing by using a molecular filter rather than energy and heat to perform a key step in the plastic making process. This new process offers the potential to dramatically reduce the amount of energy required in petrochemical facilities. So that's really kind of crazy.
I did have one more. I'm going to squeeze in between yours. I said I was going to say it and I didn't. So in 2009, they started working with algae.
Yeah.
And there's a whole like video I watched, a super long video. So essentially they have this algae that can actually produce oil without inhibiting the growth strain. It's a super crazy technique they're doing. And I guess it's a way of producing oil without having to drill holes and, oil sands and fracking and all that. So it's a brand new technology. So good on ExxonMobil for trying something different, right?
Back before I realized I was not a good engineer, I thought about getting into that and trying to find a place that would allow me to work on that, because I think it's really fascinating technology. 2017, they worked jointly with the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at the University of Illinois, Big Ten school. And ExxonMobil set the record in high performance computing by using more than 4 times the previous number of processors used on complex oil and gas reservoir simulation models to improve exploration and production.
Interesting.
The breakthrough in parallel simulation uses, guess how many processors?
1,000.
716,800 processors.
The
equivalent, you were very close. The equivalent of harnessing the power of 22,400 computers with 32 processors per computer. As simulation folks, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a lot of processors.
That's all the history that I had, but I had a couple facts.
Let me hear them.
A not so fun fact. So you stole my Exxon Valdez facts. Not so fun fact, though, the allegations were dismissed, Luke. In 2001, a suit was filed against ExxonMobil stating that they provided material for Indonesian military forces to commit crimes, murder, rape, and torture for their own benefit.
But they
were dismissed. They were dismissed, but just thought I'd put that out there. Here was what I was trying to say. A federal survey said that oil still remains under half the beaches because of the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and it's going to take decades more for them to disappear. Yeah. But a fun fact that's more fun, I guess, ExxonMobil is part of Big Oil. I didn't know Big Oil was a specific thing. I thought that's just what we call oil.
It's a term. Yeah, I didn't realize
it's a term coined in the 60s, and it's used to describe the world's 5 or 6 biggest publicly owned oil and gas companies. Other members, in addition to ExxonMobil, would be BP, Chevron, Royal Dutch Shell, Total SA, and sometimes they go with ConocoPhillips.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. We could be like a big podcast. No? Us, Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Us, Joe Rogan. I don't know who.
Stuff you should know. TEDx.
I don't watch too many I don't listen to too many other podcasts.
I don't either. So that's that. This keeps reminding me of the Bob's Burgers episode where oil Bill, I believe is the name of the song. It's terrible. If anyone's a Bob's Burger fan, though, write in and laugh with me. Anything else, Sloop, that you want?
That's all I got. This was a fun one. Here's how I'm going to end it, James. I feel like Exxon's trying.
They are.
I think they need to try harder.
That way they raise your gas prices more? Is that what you're saying?
No, lower them. No.
They need to try harder to lower your gas prices while keeping the world safe.
Yes.
I agree. Keep up the good work, Exxon. If you want to sponsor us, go ahead and email me at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time,
see ya.